Excellent. So I am here to discuss what it means to bring decentralized identity to the Bitcoin network. So next slide, please. Who am I? My name is Evin McMullen. As David shared, my adventure to the on-chain space has certainly been an evolving one. I first encountered Bitcoin because I had perhaps the world's greatest university professor of all time, a young woman named Elizabeth Stark, who went on to start the Lightning Network and introduce Bitcoin payments to the world in a more accessible way. My previous work includes leadership at places like Consensys and Berkshire Hathaway. As David mentioned, I founded one of the early verifiable data platforms called disco.xyz, and today I'm CEO and co-founder of Privado ID, where we make it easy to prove traits about your identity once and reuse them forever across different protocols, applications, and services. Next slide, please. All right, GM, let's wake up. So first, quick poll of the audience. Who here holds Bitcoin? Excellent. Now, who is doing something with their Bitcoin? Who's buying ordinals? Who's playing around with inscriptions, thinking about DeFi? Okay, all right, so we've got some pretty open-minded and curious holders here. Very excellent. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, cool. So we are going to talk about some common values that are relevant to Bitcoin holders and also incredibly relevant to the subject we're going to discuss here today, identity. So obviously, because you are self-custodying Bitcoin holders, there are a certain set of values that we hold in common: sovereignty, security, privacy, and composability. Now, composability is the last thing that we're going to anchor into our discussion today. What can we do with our Bitcoin so that we can make it more extensible, more powerful, and more relevant to our everyday lives? Next slide. So let's talk about who else is building in this interesting space, extending capabilities of Bitcoin. We have, on the one hand, a number of projects that are bringing Bitcoin into DeFi, folks like Wrapped Bitcoin, like Lombard Finance, even like the DeFi platforms that allow Bitcoin as collateral. But of course, if the only thing I know about you is your public key, there are only two games we can play together. We can spend a treasury, or we can do over-collateralized lending. But our Bitcoin deserves quite a lot more utility than just that. So we've started to see interesting experiments in the identity space from folks like Michael Saylor, as well as folks like Microsoft, trying to think about what it means to bring persistent identity, information about you as a person, who you know, who you trust, what you can do, so that we can play more interesting coordination games, as David says, on the mother chain with our Bitcoin. One of the great challenges of this opportunity is the ability to decide what information is relevant. Where does it come from, and who do we trust? I hate to tell you guys, but sometimes people lie on the internet. And so bringing verifiability to our identities on chain to further open opportunities that we have in the Bitcoin space, I think is the next great unlock for this network and what we can do. So when we think about the advent of AI, this makes the conversation we're having right now a little bit more complicated. You guys might be familiar with the agentic workflows that are now taking over the crypto space, the idea of agents that can trade on your behalf, swarms of agents that can interact with your crypto, get you the best price for things like swaps and loans, and more easily facilitate abstraction across multiple chains. But this brings us to kind of a weird place. How do I know that I can trust this agent with something as valuable as my Bitcoin? How do I know that when I'm interacting with an agent, it represents you or you? Right now, there are no standardized or scalable forms that we've seen just yet, but our team is ready to introduce some of these unique capabilities. So the question then becomes, how do we know who we're interacting with, so that we can do more peer-to-peer, self-custodial actions with our Bitcoin? And how do we know that our counterparty is a person or a bot in representing a party that we feel like we can trust or we feel good about interacting with? So if we hop onto our next slide, I'm going to drop a little bit of tea. You guys are the very first audience to learn about what we are calling the Billions Network. The Billions Network is the first human and AI network built with mobile-first verification so that we can address exactly those questions we were just posing. How do I know who my counterparty is when I interact on Bitcoin without receiving an undue amount of information about them? Without needing to know their exact name, their home address, how can I discern that they are in fact a human being or an agent acting on behalf of a person who I know and trust? Those qualifications can mean that they're not on the OFAC list, that they've been KYC'd, that they are a citizen of a certain country or not. Of course, the open permissionlessness of Bitcoin is a beautiful offering, but for these more sophisticated coordination games that involve multiple players, first, we have to identify the humans, then we have to identify their agents in a trust-minimized and verifiable way. So how does this network operate, and what does it mean for us to bring this data to Bitcoin? Let's head on to the next slide to find out. So earlier today, you may have seen a few headlines that just popped out. What we are up to with the Billions Network, built on top of the Privado ID infrastructure stack, which is incidentally the most widely used set of ZK libraries on Earth. We leverage your mobile device and the security that that hardware provides to be able to prove that you are a unique person, that you're you, without revealing any of your personal information. Now, this is a little bit of a different approach than you might have seen before, but one that we think is much more scalable and secure. So on the next slide, we'll ask Drake for a little bit of help in terms of dividing this context. We do not believe that proprietary hardware, that databases full of body parts that the eyeball cabal is collecting is the right answer. We think that there requires more than just one party's opinion of your identity. We work hand in hand with enterprises, governments around the world using a flexible framework that allows us to be legal and safe in jurisdictions around the world, because identity is not a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. That's why we leverage the hardware that's already in your device to allow you to assert yourself in a self-sovereign and secure manner on any chain, and including Bitcoin. Next slide, please. So obviously, we are all now part of this new economy that is emerging. This ability for us to not only take our Bitcoin into new spaces, but also to rely on non-human counterparties. What we are seeing, I think, right now is a proliferation of early tools, but none of those AI agents have an accountability mechanism. There's no way to ask, who's your daddy? Take me to your leader, or to verify who that party might be that's sitting behind a non-human actor on-chain. Next slide, please. We are also starting to see these actions happening on-chain and off-chain on behalf of users at scale. Show of hands, how many of you guys have interacted with an AI tool in the last month? All right, it seems like we're pretty well and familiar with the interfaces that we know and trust. But has anyone verified that the front ends that they're using, that they're interacting with, are associated with specific businesses, or do we just trust the logos that are on their websites? This is creating a really strange pattern of behavior where we have to mistrust our eyes, mistrust our senses, because, as we discussed earlier, sometimes there is misrepresentation online and on-chain. Being able to validate down to the human being in a privacy-preserving manner is the level of trust that we require to bring peer-to-peer Bitcoin exchange in a privacy-preserving way to the entire world. Next slide, please. So, this presents us with the challenge that we're here to talk about today. How do you know when you interact with an agent that it's my agent? Because I said so? That's not a great reason to trust. On the next slide, we will start to think about what these solutions can look like. So obviously, accountability, being able to determine who your counterparty is and having consequences for the actions of that counterparty. Accountability requires identity. So for businesses that want to be able to incorporate on-chain interactions with Bitcoin, leveraging multi-agent systems, there needs to be some risk management perspective. In fact, Rick and I were talking earlier about how Canada Air was recently sued because they had a chatbot, a GPT wrapper on their homepage that started making up airplane fares that don't exist. And of course, they were held liable because it was represented as part of their business. Though the model was not created internally, and it may have been fine-tuned, but was not originated or trained inside of their entity. So for all of you who are starting to think about leveraging agents in your personal and professional lives, this is an open opportunity for us to make those interactions safer, more trustworthy, and more secure. So in terms of the technical guts of how we do this, how do we assign an identity to an AI agent, and how do we relate that to a human being, I'm excited to announce the introduction of what we call Deep Trust, a new framework that allows you to take first an identified human being and to relate it to an identified AI agent. This framework allows us to create verifiable relationships between human beings and swarms of non-human actors in a manner that is not invasive and in a manner that is legally compliant. So we are also really excited to welcome a number of partners into this ecosystem as we grow. If you are building in the DeFi space, if you care deeply about what automating the future of our Bitcoin experiences look like, we welcome your partnership into this consortium of collaborators who are helping us bring this vision to life. So to bring it all together, let's look at a quick roadmap on the next slide of where we're heading next. So first, we are building the human and AI network, Billions.network, as I've just shared with you guys. But first, we need to ensure the distribution of this friendly interface and work out the kinks of what it means to get on board. Then, once we've established this human and AI network, which is in its fledgling form today, we will scale up to composable reputation, what it means to take metadata about the actions of agents and humans and add it together from multiple sources. Because there should not be one arbiter of who is a person and who is not, of who is a citizen, who is a qualified participant, and who is not. And that's why at the Billions Network, we uniquely combine many sources of data, many proven authorities, if you will, that are able to contribute to a more meaningful trust graph. And then lastly, we arrive at the trust economy, the ability to tokenize, monetize, and benefit from your unique interactions and the composable network that you are part of. So with the Billions Network, we look forward to unlocking personalized rewards, benefits, airdrops, distributions of value to all those who are prepared to receive them based on what they choose to share, not what others decide to share about them without their consent. So this is just a quick preview of some of the interfaces that we have, but we can hop onto our last slide, and I'll invite all of you to join us on this adventure. And I also want to thank, again, our host today. This has been a really wonderful opportunity to share a little bit more of my very first chain and the ecosystem that we are building on top of it here in the world of Bitcoin. So thank you again so much to our team and for all of you for taking time out of your busy ETH Denver schedules. Really looking forward to building with all of you. My name is Evin McMullen at Proven Authority on Twitter. I represent the Billions Network and Privado ID, and I will see all of you on chain. Thank you.